Hello. Today I wanted to do something a little different. I'm going to be staying in my office and I wanted to go over the most common question that I get from people all the time, and that is, I'm interested in photography, but I have no idea what camera I should buy. What should I get? And for someone that's entering the world of photography, the choices are it's overwhelming. There's mirrorless, there's DSLRs, there's medium format, micro four thirds, there's APS-C, there's full frame cameras, there's megapixels, and there's all these geeky tech terms, and most people have no idea. For someone that's a total techie, that's like, they may really enjoy doing that research to figure out the differences between a DSLR and a mirrorless camera, or they may really enjoy comparing and the advantages of full frame over an APS-C sensor. But for most people, they just have no idea, and they just want some guidance so they can make a good decision on their first camera. So for the purpose of today's video, we're just going to be talking about and considering interchangeable lens cameras. That's a camera that the lens actually comes off and you can put on a different lens. We're not going to be considering and talking about any type of point and shoot cameras that have the lens built in that zooms in and out. So if you're just starting out in photography, you don't have a camera yet, and you need some help and some guidance, keep watching because this video is going to be for you. So the first question to answer and to think about really long and hard is, what is your budget? You can get started with an entry-level DSLR or some of the mirrorless cameras for around $600. If you have a higher budget, that's say up to $1,100 or so, somewhere around the $1,000 mark, that's going to buy you better quality gear or possibly an additional lens. But no matter what your budget, don't forget that you're going to need to at least purchase one additional battery for your camera. You're going to need some memory cards, and you're going to need a carrying case or backpack or some type of a bag to carry all your new gear in. So make sure you factor that in. So when you go shopping, sometimes you will see a kit that includes a lot of extras like that. Other times they won't. So make sure you're comparing those kits to one another and what you're actually getting in it, and make sure to add on those extra costs if it's something that's not included, because you're definitely going to need those things. So now, what specifically should you buy? So you've got your little budget, you know about what you want to spend. Which cameras should you look at? The top four brands are Canon, Nikon, Fujifilm, and Sony. And any of these lines of cameras have a full range of models, from beginner or entry level all the way up to professional level quality cameras. And that's no offense to anybody that's using Panasonic, Pentax, or Olympus, as they make good cameras as well. But the first four that I mentioned, they hold the majority of the share, and they have the most deep or depth to their range and their models of cameras and lenses. So that's the ones that I would recommend sticking to, because if you're reaching out for help and you're needing assistance, odds are most photographers are going to be using those Canon, Nikon, Fujifilm, or Sony. So which one of those do I pick? So we narrowed it down to four, which I recommend. A couple things to think about. Do you have any experience or background in any of those brands? Have you ever used a Canon camera or Nikon? Because sometimes the menu systems or just familiarity with the brand might lead you in that direction. Are there any camera stores? And I'm not talking about big box like Best Buy or Target or Walmart. I'm talking about camera stores that are dedicated camera stores near you that carry the brand with lenses and accessories and all of those little things. Because having a store that carries that usually means there are people there who can answer questions, and you can even purchase the gear directly from them. Another thing to think about, do you have a friend or family member that has the same brand of camera that may be able to help you learn? So if you've got someone you know that has a Nikon DSLR, even if they're not a professional photographer, if they use it a lot and they know it, they can help you get started. So those are some of the ideas that I would suggest you think about in guiding your purchase. Obviously, you can just let your budget and whatever's the least expensive guide your purchase, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if all things being equal, think about the other things that might help you make a better decision on the brand. So my recommendations are going to be all for new gear. And I'm going to target two price points around $600 and around $1,100. Now, I put the cap around $1,100 because I think that as a beginning photographer, if you're spending more than $1,100 on a camera setup, you could be wasting money. And I say that because as a beginning photographer, you're not going to be able to take advantage of better gear right away. And that's the analogy I like to use is if you were to go out and let's say you're interested in cooking and you were to go out and purchase a $8,000 gas oven that does everything under the sun, along with, $4,000 worth of the state-of-the-art pots and pans that the top chefs of the world use, you're not going to make any better food. You're not going to prepare food any better when you're just starting to learn than you would if you had, the bottom of the line stove and oven and, your $60 set of pans from Walmart. So another reason to go with the cheaper, leaving that price point at that $1,100 level is that, let's say after 6 months, you're just not that interested in it anymore. It was something you thought you would, and then you're really not. You're not stuck with a bunch of expensive gear that you have to sell or will never ever use. So I think that putting that cap at around $1,100 is not totally without out of reach or out of reason. And it can get you into a really, really nice setup. And if you do really like it and you do fall in love with it and you really want to start learning and growing and then you need to get better gear, you've got a much better understanding of how cameras work. You have a much better understanding of the different types of the technical jargon as far as ISO performance and lens availability and the type of shooting that you want to do. So here are my recommendations in absolutely no particular order. And again, these are around $600 price point. The first one would be the Canon EOS Rebel T7. That'll come with an 18 to 55 millimeter and a 75 to 300 millimeter lens. Second would be a Nikon D3500 with an 18 to 55 and a 70 to 300 millimeter lens. In the Sony, we've got a Sony Alpha A6000 with a 16 to 50 millimeter lens. And a Canon M50 with a 15 to 45 millimeter lens. In the next category, price point of $1,100, we'll have a few more choices because again, with more money, we're opening up our options just a little bit. Sony A7 II with a 28 to 70 millimeter lens. The Fuji X-T30 with a 15 to 45 millimeter lens. The Canon M6 Mark II with the 15 to 45 millimeter lens. A Canon EOS 80D with an 18 to 55 millimeter lens. A Nikon D5600 with 18 to 55 and a 70 to 300 millimeter lens. and a Nikon Z50 with a 16 to 50 millimeter lens. So there you have it. Those are some solid camera buys that will serve you well as a beginning photographer. You cannot go wrong with any of those. Some of the kits that I talked about came with 2 lenses, some with only 1. If that's a consideration and you want to have more options, you might want to go with one of the kits that have more than 1 lens. If you would rather have a better quality camera and just start with 1 lens, and then your budget would allow you to, in a few months, maybe to buy an additional lens to go with it, then by all means, go ahead and get the cameras that only come with 1 lens. Generally speaking, if the camera at the same price point is coming with 1 lens versus 2, that camera with 1 lens is going to be a better quality camera. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, and think about hitting that subscribe and ringing the notification bell. That way you'll get notified as I release new content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.